That'll have to do. Hi cuties! It is time to talk about all the books that I read in March. I did not have as great a reading month as previous months. I got into not a slump, but I just didn't have time to read this month between all of the awfulness that's been going on in my own life and in the world. So March can go to hell in a handbasket. But I did read 12 books this month, which I forget how many pages and stuff is because my reading planner is all the way over there and I can't get it because I'm trapped by my tripod in bed right now. So here's all the stats. Wow, that's a lot of hours of audiobooks. Is it gone now? Still there? Anyway, my book babies are right here. So the first book that I read in March was kind of a carryover from my February reads, and that was the audiobook of Kata Warrior by Nnedi Okorafor. I liked this. I think I gave it around 3 or 3.5 stars, and it was good. It just wasn't as good as the first one. I felt like I was kind of a little bit more lost in this one because the first one is a lot of Sunny's journey into becoming a leopard person and into learning about this world. Now she's already in this world. Some of the plot I just didn't quite follow as well as I did a Kata Witch. There were a lot of points in this that I was like, ooh, this is intense and good, especially the whole library scene. I just didn't quite get the big picture of it. I think I was just a little bit out of sorts while reading this one. So it's probably, if I had paid more attention to it, I would have liked it a lot more. It's still a good book. It just wasn't as amazing as a Kata Witch was, in my opinion. It is very good. I do recommend reading these on audiobook because I think the voice actress does a pretty good job of Sunny and her whole story. So I liked it a lot. And I really like Chi-Chi. Chi-Chi's kind of like my favorite character in this series, so, or duology. And then for the start of March, I was actually in Ohio, so I read some ebooks. And it is March of the Indies, so I started with my 3 ebooks that I have in March. I had one more ebook that I didn't get to. The first one I got to was Rum and Redemption by Dahlia de Winters. This is a very short story. It's only 36 pages, but it was very good. I recommend if you just want a really quick romancy kind of read. It's kind of spooky because it deals with a ghost. I just wish there was more to this. I want a full novel about this book. This whole plot about I really want to see more of this mythology. So Dahlia, can you write more for me, please? Because I liked it a lot. The next ebook that I read was Immortal Scars. I almost said Hopeless Scars, but that's the second one. Immortal Scars by A.L. Williams. This is kind of an urban fantasy, male erotic romance. Not quite erotic romance. It didn't feel like it was erotic. It was just good romance. And I was very pleasantly surprised by this because I know A.L. Williams and they did warn me about some erotic stuff in it. And I was like, okay, it just might not be a fave because of that. I'm very ace, so I don't really crave the erotic fiction. But I really enjoyed this. It was very good. I was really involved with the characters that's created. I was a little bit kind of not, I didn't really connect so much with, which is weird. I didn't connect well with Satan is a weird sentence to say. Lucifer in general, the character of Lucifer, I wasn't quite sure of his development as a character, but I think A.L. is actually bringing Lucifer more into the big picture, either in Hopeless Scars or the one after that. I can't remember which one. So I think Lucifer's gonna have a bigger story later. I do definitely want to read Hopeless Scars, which is now available, and I'm getting it on my Kindle. We'll see when I get to it, hopefully before the next March of the Indies, because I am really involved with the characters that we meet. I thought their romance was very cute and believable, and I just thought it was very, very cute. It's kind of what you want in a paranormal romance, and A.L. hit the nail right on the head, so great job. Next up, I read Shattered by Aphrodite Lee, another author tuber that I know. Unfortunately, I did not like this one so much. It may just be not my type of book because there is insta-love in this, and I'm not a huge fan of insta-love. I think that their romance just went by so fast. It went like boom, head on, I love yous right away. I'm gonna be with you for the rest of my life right away. It does have some really good moments in it that with our villain and stuff. So the villain, like, you hate this villain, and Aphrodite does a good job of making you hate this guy so much, because I was a little worried it was going to be love triangle-y and that he was going to be an actual love interest, but he's not. He's just straight up the bad guy, so I was really thankful for that. There were points where I thought some characters were introduced a little late to the story. There were ones that became pretty involved in the main plot line, but they were introduced later, so I was like, who is this person again? And some of those, especially some of those characters, because they are all teenagers, and like one of them ends up actually getting married, and I'm like, I don't think that was legal, but screw the parents, because the parents suck at the same time. This story does really rip your heart out with the main love interest, and I'm not going to spoil that for you, but it is gut-wrenchingly sad. And there will be more in this series. I'm curious to know how this will go on. I'm worried for our main character. I also didn't like one of the last plot points, which I'm not going to tell you because it is kind of a spoiler, but that's just a personal preference. Whenever said plot line is involved in any capacity of romance, I'm kind of like, ugh, why does it have to involve that? But that's just a me preference. You guys might like it a lot more. So for me, Shattered wasn't exactly the book for me. It may be just my tastes in book, but other people I can definitely see enjoying this. It's also written in first person present with omniscient POV, which is something I am not used to at all. It's not a style that I write in or am used to. I give props to anybody who can write in that way. I don't necessarily think it was necessary to write in an omniscient POV. I think a lot of it could have just been done from first person. And first person present is fine with this, the way that this one is written. I think we just didn't need the omniscience in it, and it still would have worked. But that is a style choice. It's just not one that I make. There you go. I'm really sad that I didn't actually get to a lot of the March of the Indies books. I still have a bunch on my TBR to read. We'll see when I get to them. The next audiobook that I finished was Munchausen by PC Cast. Sorry, it's very shiny. I went into this with very low expectations because I know PC Cast's other writing, and they're not usually books that I like, but I really liked Munchausen. This is the first book in Tales of a New World. I surprisingly like this a lot. The audiobook is how I read it, and I don't know if I recommend reading it that way because the way that the narrator reads it kind of was overacting. Okay, I'm just gonna read you. This is my imitation of the narrator. I feel bad for roasting them, but this is how it's literally read. I wish you didn't have to hide. I wish it could be different. Her mother's voice was soft and sad. I do too, Mama, Mari said. I'm so sorry, Mari. You know It's okay, Mama. Really, I'm used to it. Mari schooled her expressions into nonchalance as she turned to face her mother, and I may grow out of it. It's read like that. And I didn't like that part. I still really enjoyed the story, so I recommend reading this as a physical read. It does look very intimidatingly long, but it's very fast to read. It's a very fast-paced story, and there's art and stuff in this, which I didn't even know about. I just looked at it. That's the Reaper God. Oh, okay. This is so much more visual. I should have read the, oh, sorry. Look, it's the tribe of the trees. That's what their nests look like. That's so cool. So like in each chapter, there is a picture because Mari is an artist. She sketches things. Oh no, a page got messed up. I'm gonna have to like flip through these books now. I didn't even realize that they were like that. Ah, is that Rigel? Is that Rigel or is that LaRue? Oh my God. Puppy. Puppies are heavily involved in the plot, and that also makes me very, very happy. I just did not realize there was actual pictures in this. That is amazing. I love it. It is multiple POV. Oh, that's Rigel. That's totally Rigel. He's so cute. Ah! Sorry. I love the puppies in this. This is very good. Okay, so in the reviews on Goodreads, there's one very popular review that is like, I disagree wholeheartedly. They're saying they read like 10%, which is really not a lot. That's like 50 pages. And they immediately were like, Mari's racist. And she's not. She's biracial. And she's hiding who she is because her father was part of the Sun tribe. So it lightened her. It gave her blonde hair. And her tribe is all dark-skinned and stuff. And she does put like a cream on her to kind of cover that, and puts like hair dye in her hair to make it darker so that she blends in. Because if her identity was revealed as being half Sun tribe, then, or half companion is actually what they're called, she would be banished from her place and she would be basically set out to die. So it's her own way to defend herself. With like doing brown face and stuff, that's usually in mockery. So she's not mocking them. She's just trying to protect herself and protect her mother, because her mother would also be banished. And her mother is a very important character. Her mother's a moon woman and a very important part of her clan, of the Weaver clan. And if they don't have a moon woman, they all go mad because they have this thing called moon fever or night fever. And that has to be cured by the moon woman every 3 nights. And it's a very interesting, intricately woven story. So we have these different POVs with Mari, with Nick, with Deadeye, and I think a few other characters maybe. I think maybe the first one is just Nick, Mari, and Deadeye. I don't know if Sora has her own POV in this yet. I thoroughly enjoyed this. It's definitely like, keep reading it, because Mari's, that's the whole thing. Like, Mari's attitude towards her tribe is not great. She does have some kind of prejudice against her clan, but she grows and she learns. So when you pick up a book and you immediately decide a character is going to be this way throughout the entire book, like, that's not how character arcs work. And if it does do that way, then it's a bad book. But Mari changes so much in this book and in the following ones that you have to stick with this one. At least get through the first 100 pages. If by 100 pages you're not into it, fine. But if you're only reading the first like 25 to 50 pages, that is not enough to really get this book. It's not enough to get all of the POVs and to get the full storyline. I do recommend this. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I think I just took away the 1 star because some of it is a little bit too good to be true sometimes. Mari, the world that they live in can sometimes be a little bit too black and white with good and evil and how they interpret things and how things happen to them. Granted, a lot of conflict does happen, but you kind of always know Mari's gonna come out on top as you go through the series. So you kind of lose that grip of, you know, of potential downfall for them. They kind of always succeed. Granted, it gets worse and worse through the books, but it's still kind of, it gives you that good uplifting feel, which you don't get a lot, especially in big fantasy novels. Like, a lot of fantasy novels really want to be the dark and gritty world that you see on TV and stuff right now. They want to be very Game of Thrones, and that's just not the style that I like reading, where it's so gritty and there's no glimmer of hope. This one just has maybe a bit too much happiness and hope in it, but I don't mind because puppies. I spent a long time talking about that book. The next one, the first physical breed that I read for March of the Indies itself was Color World by Rachel E. Kelly, and I'm sad to say I did not like this very much. There's also an insta-love in this, and I did not like that. The biggest turnoff for me of this book, and I actually took pictures of it on my phone to show my friends when I was reading. The main character falls in love with one of the other characters, who is a man who is of Latin descent, and he's very hot. He's very gorgeous. He's just very attractive. And she decides that every few sentences she needs to remind you of that, but not in just saying that he's hot and gorgeous. It's he's Mr. Hispanic hotness, or Mr. Latino Dreamboat, or stuff like that. I'll paste them here. It's not a good descriptor. It's that exotic fetishism, it feels like. She develops a superpower where she has lethal skin. She's basically Rogue, and that's mentioned in this, that she's kind of like Rogue. And I didn't like it, because then the guy, she is smart about being like, hey, I can't be in a relationship. You can't touch me or you'll die. And he just does not care. He's just always pursuing her, and she's like, stop. and he doesn't stop, which makes him really freaking creepy. It definitely hit some red flags for me. It was so heavily involved in the romance between them that it lost me for the actual plot, because there's the actual plot of her trying to get cured, and it gets completely side-railed by this romance between them. And then I've read on to look at the synopsis for the next books, and it does the thing that I hate, where they're immediately gonna get married and then immediately make a family, and then like, can we not? She's barely known him. She's known him for like 2 weeks, and okay, we're getting married. Like, no. Stop, that's not realistic, says the person whose parents got engaged after 3 days. Yeah, I didn't like it. I won't be continuing with that series. That's my take. I don't really have anything good to say about it. Just, it killed me with the Mr. Hispanic hotness. Like, what? What? All right, let's talk about a good book. I read the audiobook for Sun Warrior, which is PC Cast's also Tales of a New World. This is the second book in Munchausen. I think I like this one the best so far. It has the best kind of conflict in it. It has the best character growth for a lot of characters, and it has just Mari and Nick's relationship just makes me smile so much. I don't care that it might have taken up a lot of the plot. I loved it. I also loved the introduction of the character Andreas. I was hoping for a different love interest for Andreas, but Bast is always right. Bast is his Lynx. He is a Lynx companion, and Bast is always right. And I've been reading the other one, and Bast is right. Bast was right. I still wish Sora has a love interest. I need Sora to find someone, because I really like Sora as a character. She's kind of the bitchy, popular girl turned into the main character's best friend, which is a trope that I actually really like. And Sora makes me so happy. So there's a lot of puppies, and the thing about this book is with the companion tribe, so they raise shepherds and terriers, and once they're around 6 months old, they will choose a companion, and they'll like speak telepathically with their companion, tell them their name, and they're joined forever. And it happens a lot because there are puppies that are born and some puppies that are already getting to that age, and people get chosen like crazy in this one and the next one, to the point where they keep explaining it, and there's always this one point of the new owner of said pup being like, "You're not gonna take him away from me, are you?" And it's like, no, they're not. They've already said this like every single time. We know how this thing works, and it just gets explained every time. So sometimes there's a little bit of over explaining or repetitive explaining, but it's still fine. It's still my favorite of the trilogy thus far. It's not just a trilogy. There will be more books coming out. I don't know what the fourth one's going to be. Is it going to be the Whale Singers? I think it might be the Whale Singers. I kind of hope it's the Whale Singers, because that's intriguing to read, but we get these kind of other ideas of what's going to happen. There's all these other races and stuff in this new world, because it's post-apocalyptic, or like post-apocalyptic and a reborn Earth from like our time. So it's like many decades in the future, and now we're living in this kind of world, and it's just great. I really like it a lot. And now I have to go and look at, is there more pictures? Are there more? Yes, of course there are more. I have to look through and flip through this entire book now. There's Bass. Look, there's Bass. There's the Lynx. I do love how connected these books are with like human and animal companions. It's so great that way. It's my little fantasy heart. Like, if I read these when I was in high school or middle school, I would be obsessed with this. I'd be writing fanfic like crazy. So there's that. And next up, we have my big, out of nowhere, did not expect to love this as much as I do, indie book, and that is The Hands We're Given by O.E. Tierman, which is a pen name for a group of authors, and it's the first book in the Aces High trilogy. I really want to go on and read the next one. I only got to the first one this month. It took me a while because I accidentally left it at work when I had a few days off, and I was really sad about that, and I was not going all the way back to work. So this is actually a it's not apocalyptic, I don't think. Maybe it's post-apocalyptic, dystopian, futuristic, military, not quite cyberpunk, don't think it's really cyberpunk. It might be a little cyberpunky, but it is just this dystopian military world where corporations kind of run different areas, and we have a commander who is trans and is a new commander to this base that is also known as the Wild Cards. So it's a bunch of rambunctious people who had just lost their previous commander who they absolutely loved, and he unfortunately passed away from cancer and there was no cure for him. So they're all really rough around the edges. They've had 2 other commanders within this time that they have basically sent off. So they're trying a new tactic by sending a brand new commander in, and the character, his name is Aiden, and he is very new to this and is very worried about this whole role, but comes into his own, and there is a romance between him and the logistics officer, Kevin, and it's so cute. I did not expect to get cuteness from a military dystopian book. Like, what? I loved this though. I loved it so much. I hope to be doing an interview with them as well. I met them at Mile High Con last year and again at Cosign. So I will be seeing them again and we'll be able to sit down with the creators of Aces High and do some chitty chat with them. I definitely recommend go get this. It is available as an audiobook, at least the first one is, and just go pick them up, guys. You will not regret it. They're so good. It's a big found family kind of thing, and I really, really enjoyed it. The next audiobook I read was The Gilded Wolves by Roshani Chokshi, and this was a book I kind of picked up for the cover, and I heard a lot of mixed reviews about it. There were people who were like really hated it. I was kind of half and half. I loved a lot of the characters except Tristan. I hate Tristan. I don't like him. The only redeemable quality about Tristan is his care of Goliath the tarantula. Other than that, screw Tristan. Don't care. Loved everybody else, especially Enrique and Zofia. Enrique and Zofia and Hypnos. Like, I really kind of hope in Silvered Serpents when it comes out later this year that they become like a polyamorous relationship, because I love Enrique so much, and there's this kind of will they won't they between Enrique and Zofia, and same with Enrique and Hypnos, and I love Hypnos as a character so much as well. He's like the eccentric, is he a bad guy, you're not sure, but he's working with us, and I love that kind of character so much. I really need to see more of their growth together. I don't care so much about Layla and Severon. I don't really care about them because they feel like a very predictable trope of pairings where Layla's kind of this perfectly beautiful, unattainable woman who they've had a night together, and Severon is this rugged, you know, it's very, I don't want to say it's like Han Solo and Leia, but it's kind of that way, which is not a bad romance. I love Han and Leia, but it's done in a way that it's like, I've already seen this and I don't really understand the connection between them. Enrique really kept me going on this. The actual plot didn't make a whole lot of sense to me, and I think it might have been better if I had physically read it instead of an audiobook, because it was done by 2 narrators, and the female narrator was really good. I think I've heard her in other books too, but the male narrator I don't think was good for this, because he was very choppy. He was like, if I imitate him. While most of the houses of the Western world used and collected forging objects made from both affinities, House Nyx collected treasures of a particular strain, those that showcased an affinity of the mind. House Nyx had objects that spliced memory. And it was just it was almost like reading a textbook, the way that he narrated, and the way that the female narrated was just way better. It was much more, it had more emotion to it, and the guy just didn't. So I think this is better read as a physical book, but I still enjoyed it. I do want to go on and read The Silver Serpent, so I can't wait for that. Also, it's going to have a gorgeous cover anyway, because look at this. It's such a beautiful cover. I was a little bit confused by it, but in the end, I think it's more about the found family between our Gilded Wolves, if you will. They're not really called that, but I do like them. I am interested to see what's going to happen with Layla and her own personal journey. Like, I like Layla as a solo character, not per her relationship with Severon. But Hypnos, Enrique, and Zofia, I'm living for you. Next up, another indie book I read was Red Dragon's Keep by Natalie Vanderwerken. I thought this was a middle grade novel. It's actually not. It is a YA. The main character, Thomas, is I think like 16. However, I didn't really like this very much. I just thought it was kind of bland. Like, Natalie Vanderwerken is a very sweet woman, and she wrote this for like her grandkids, and that's where it does feel like a bedtime story a grandmother would read their grandkids, and that's what other people are liking this for. They're reading it to their kids and they're liking it. It's just not enough for me. There wasn't enough at stake. There wasn't enough development. I couldn't remember all these. There was a bunch of different characters that I just didn't really see anything. Thomas didn't really have an arc. He was kind of just good from start to finish, and it didn't really make sense that way. I just thought this could have been developed a little bit more, especially to make it more YA. It feels, it's like a YA character in a middle grade world, and it just needs more. I don't know how it really worked, because Natalie Vanderwerken does use her actual grandkids as the base for characters, so you're kind of seeing how a grandmother sees her grandkids, and so all of them are going to be perfect, which is sweet and adorable, but I don't think it really worked in this novel. I think it works as kind of just something shared within a family, but as an outside reader of knowing who these kids are and knowing these people, it didn't quite work for me as a fantasy novel. So I didn't connect with it at all. I feel really bad about it, but it just wasn't for me. Then I read another indie book. I was trying to really catch up because I realized how behind I was. So I went on to Daisha M. Arnold's Reactance. This is book 2 in the Diazem series. It's technically a novella. It's like 109 pages long. So it's a very short, very quick read. It's supposed to be YA, and it's also supposed to be a kind of journal. So we have Sasha Bowman, who is supposed to be 18 years old. I really don't think that the cover model was a good fit for her, because she definitely looks way older than 18, but that's just my own opinion there. Also, it's written as a journal, and the problem is Sasha is supposed to be this like aspiring writer. She ends up kind of writing some news articles that everyone praises, but I don't really see why, because I don't think they were that well written. It was a lot of telling, because it is a journal, so maybe it's just the format that I wasn't used to. I mean, I like reading certain journals. There were points where this was really good, and there were other chapters where I was just like, this is just kind of telling things. It just wasn't up to the level of Apparent Power, because I really loved Apparent Power, which is the first book in the series. This novella just takes you out of it. Especially, I did like that Sasha is against Valerie and she just hates her. She doesn't know her, but she blames Valerie for the death that happens in this book, and they don't meet until like, I don't think they actually meet at all. Maybe they will come together in the third book, but I did like that she's resistant to Valerie without understanding what actually happened in Apparent Power, because some intense stuff happens in that first book. I just think that as a YA, it didn't quite work. Daisha's really good at writing adults, so I do definitely want to continue reading the rest of the series, but I gave this one 3 out of 5, and it could have been a little bit more. I kind of wish it had taken you out of the journal at some points so that we could see these interactions happening, because sometimes there are time jumps in here and I'm like, wait, what? That's happening now? So I wish there was a little bit between seeing like a third person POV and then going to first person with her journal. That might have worked better just for me personally. It might work for other people. I liked it, but it didn't live up to Apparent Power, because that was such a good book last year. I've only got 2 books left. The last audiobook that I read was Wind Rider by PC Cass. This is the 3rd book in Tales of a New World. It is not the conclusion, not by far. I think I liked this one the least though. This one is more like a very long chase sequence, and we also do some time jumps in here. I really liked River's story. So River is a new character. She is a wind rider, which is people who have horse companions instead of like pup or lynx companions. I really liked her. I hated some of the other characters, and especially Clayton, but you're supposed to hate Clayton. And she's also kind of an ace character as well, which I appreciated. I was really happy with the twist of who Ghost Rider was gonna be. That made me happy. I was really worried that by the end of this, Mari would be Miss Perfect and have two companions, because she has Rigel, who is her shepherd. And I read some of the comments of people when they were anticipating this book and going, do you think Mari's gonna get a horse companion? Is she just gonna be this all-powerful thing? Because Mari is half Sun Tribe, so she can also call down fire, and she's a moon woman, so she can call down the moon, and she's a companion, and it's kind of like she's almost too perfect. But I was really happy that that didn't happen. There is a lot of more of the pups choosing and a lot more of that same explaining that happens, so that happens there. But it is the POVs of added with River, and I really liked River's POV, even though River's POV is set like in the past, and then by the end the timelines meet up together again, so that's really good, because we did need that backstory of River and how she becomes what she becomes in this. The problem I thought was that with the villain, we have the God of Death, and the God of Death appears in the second book, I believe. He's in the second one, or he might appear in the first one. I read them so fast I can't remember the timelines and how they break apart. But with the character of the God of Death, like, he's evil. I mean, he's playing out evil, which is not something I normally enjoy, especially making Death evil. Like, I like Death as my indifferent kind of concept, but this is a different way of telling it, and that's fine. There just wasn't full conflict by the end. It was just one really long chase scene. That's what I feel like happened, and they didn't even meet up at the end, so there wasn't like some big overarching conflict. It was just a lot of, here's the progression as we go, and it was mostly just to meet the Wind Riders, which was really important to do, but I kind of would have liked for the end to have them actually have this conflict. But I think we're saving Death versus Mari in maybe the next book or the one after. I don't know how many books this is going to be. I definitely know there will be a fourth, because it definitely left you hanging there. And the last book I barely finished in time. I did technically have to finish reading it on April 1st, but there was only a few pages left because I ran after midnight. I still read it, but it was just a little bit over time. But that is Kenneth Rope by Vanessa Robertson. This is a steampunk novel. I don't want to say that it's full on steampunk, because it's kind of like intro to steampunk, because our main character right here, Vivian, is living kind of high society London. She's a very nice, she's a lady, well, not a lady, she's daughter of an apothecary, but she's engaged to a fancy lord and gets wrapped up in this kind of steampunk world that's new to her. So it's a good read if you're not used to steampunk. Sorry, my windows are open, their dog's barking. But if you're new to steampunk, which as a reader I kind of am, I'm definitely not new to the aesthetic, which I highly appreciate. I love steampunk, but for books, this was kind of my first real steampunky read. I liked this a lot. I thought this was also a good surprise. I was kind of worried about it. Because I know Vanessa as well, she's another author that I've met at Mile High Con and Cosign, she markets this book kind of as a steampunk with tarot magic, but I didn't really see the tarot magic too much. There is some tarot in this. It's used by Vivian's mom, and then not till the very, very end do you see an inkling of Vivian having some kind of magic to do with this kind of premonition or guidance of tarot visions. Maybe it gets more developed in the next books, which I just haven't gotten to yet, but as the first book, that's not the big plot. It's definitely their story in trying to fit. I don't want to spoil what it is, because like it's their relationship, it's his world that she gets kind of trapped into, and I thought it was very good. I do kind of wish that the romance was dragged a little bit more. It's not insta love, but I think it could have been stretched a little bit more. It would have been a little bit more satisfying for me as a reader. But I did really like it. I really enjoyed the plot. I really liked the airship that they get on and the crew of this airship. They were really fun, and I hope they play a bigger role in the next books as well. I do appreciate how Vivian's story ends up, because she does start a very like a lady who's dependent on men and then grows into her own. So I really like this. I'm glad I like this, and I finished off the month fairly strong despite my disappointments of not finishing other books that I wanted to read, but I will definitely be continuing this series as well. Those are my March reads. What did you guys read in the month of March? I only read half of the books that I had intended to this month, but hopefully I'll still hold on to all these books and get to them eventually. But for now, it's the April TBR, and I've already set that, so we'll see. You guys can reach me down in the comments below or on Facebook, Tumblr, and Twitter. And if you like the content that I'm putting out, please go ahead and check out my Ko-fi, and you can buy me a hot chocolate to help fuel me in my creative needs here. And I will see you next time, cuties. Bye.